This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City look to make it 3 wins in a row as they host Charlotte FC. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
Always that anticipation. When is the director going to put Matty and Glenn in the field? That's Yankee Stadium. I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Matty Lawrence, and we are here as New York City. They've moved ahead of the playoff line, right above it. Kind of a surge considering they've gone 3 and then 4 without a loss, and now in 8th place coming in, Charlotte in 9th place in the Eastern Conference. They have identical records, Matty, 3-4-2. What separates them is the goal difference. New York City is neutral. 9-4, 9 against, and then you got Charlotte at the -2 mark. And but the consideration today, folks, is that New York City has never beaten Charlotte FC. They've played on 5 occasions. Charlotte, fairly new to the league, obviously, but this will be the 3rd New York City home match. First, Red Bull Arena, that was a loss. Then last year, Citi Field, that was a draw. And now, for the first time, they're playing at Yankee Stadium. So Charlotte's getting a taste of all the venues, the home venues for New York City.
Yeah, look, you don't want a run like that to continue for too long. I know it's not the same team, and it never will be the same team that goes on over years, but you do want to get one over on, an Eastern Conference rival. That's for certain. And look, we know that Charlotte FC, we talk about records being the same, and we talked about overall records, but it's away records as well. Yeah. Both teams are terrible on the road. Neither team have won in their 4 games, lost 3 of them. They've only picked up a point out of the 12. So you NYCFC shouldn't be losing at home to Charlotte FC, and they should be turning them over, especially after what we've seen. And it wasn't just at Yankee Stadium, obviously. What we've seen at Yankee Stadium and Citi Field.
Yeah, Yankee Stadium was the New England 2-0 win, and then at Citi Field it was against DC United. And the one loss on the road, among the losses on the road for New York City, opening day at Charlotte, where set-piece goal conceded. Adilson Malanda, who's back in the lineup again. He had been injured, missed the last couple of games, but he's back in the 11 for Charlotte. But he scored off the head on a set piece, and that was the way the season started, in a manner of, not scoring goals, struggling away from home, only 1 victory away from home all of last year, and then also the set piece goal allowed. So, I mean, it was like the triumvirate of what had happened the year before.
Yeah, I think we said it during the commentary, didn't we? And probably post-game, we said if we could have scripted that game, it panned out exactly as we knew it would. A loss, and as you say, conceding to a set piece, not being able to score goals. And luckily, things have turned around and transformed, let's be honest. Now they're back at home, whether that's Citi Field or Yankee Stadium. I think what we've seen in the last 2 games, granted not against great teams, but they've been good performances. They haven't been great performances, but they've been good performances and good solid team performances. And I think the likes of Matt Freese and Santi Rodriguez have really stood out as well. If I say it's a good team performance, those 2 guys have played really well. Great.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. They've had probably Santi Rodriguez the best 2 games I've seen him play back-to-back in his NYCFC career, and I don't think that's doing him a disservice. I think he was that good.
And he's been very good at home, 4 goals and an assist this year. Yeah. All those contributions have been at home. In fact, 14 of his last 16 goal contributions, and that's since the beginning of 2023, have been at home. So once they go back on the road, it's Colorado next week at Citi Field, and then after that in Toronto, and now you have to start trying to sort it out on the road. Well, that's what Charlotte's trying to do today. Charlotte, North Carolina. North Carolina, it's one of those really nice spots in the country, especially consider like Wilmington, North Carolina, on the beach on a Christmas day, playing touch football with your family. I mean, those are some of the scenes that might emerge as you think about being in North Carolina. Now, Charlotte is also a wonderful spot, Wilmington on the sea, and Charlotte a little bit more inland. But when we had a visit there, there's a lot of people from this part of the country that retire to North Carolina. That's what I've known. I have older friends or my friends and their parents. There are a lot of people from New Jersey finished things off in North Carolina or are finishing things off.
Look, I like Charlotte as a city. I like Charlotte as a football team, certainly from what we saw in the first game. I do think they're there for the taking, though, away from home. It's the same as NYCFC. You'd want to play NYCFC. If you were hosting a home game, you'd ask to play either Charlotte or NYCFC. You only need to look at Charlotte's away games. They've lost to New England Revolution, who are bottom of the Eastern Conference. They've lost to Nashville, who are second bottom in the Eastern Conference. And they've lost to Toronto, who, although Toronto are fifth, I don't think Toronto are a particularly good team. And maybe the fact they're sitting in fifth tells me that I'm wrong, but just from what I've seen of Toronto this season, maybe I've watched the wrong games, I don't think they're good. So they've lost to three, in my opinion, certainly two very bad teams.
And then you go back to their homestead, Bank of America Stadium, where they beat New York City. But their best win of the year is they defeated Columbus 2-0. Now, Columbus had a red card 20 minutes in, which certainly contributed to things. But you still have to consider that
and they drew with Cincinnati, so they drew and beat the MLS Cup winners and Supporters Shield winners. So it's Jekyll and Hyde. I've written down in my notes, but it's the same as NYCFC. And for any team to be good, you have to be able to play home and away. That's factual. There's not a good team in the world that doesn't know how to win away, and it's problematic for both teams.
Well, there's the starting 11 if you are watching us rather than just listening in the lower third. We're rolling it there. Just one change for New York City FC, and it's Julian Fernandez, who has come off the bench and scored in stoppage time in each of the last two matches, and it was that second goal to bring a sigh of relief to his side. But he's going to earn the start today in front of Hannes Wolf. So that's the lone change for New York City FC. So let's get to let's get to the goals from last week. They were both fantastic, and we talked about Santi Rodriguez having two of his maybe best games as a member of the New York City Football Club. Well, he scored the first goal. And now New York City on it with Bakrar. Back to goal. He swivels. Now it's Hannes Wolf, cut to the middle of the field. Here's Santi Rodriguez from Hannes Wolf. First time finish for the Uruguayan, Santi Rodriguez. And in the 20th minute, it's New York City FC. They open the scoring. They're trying to make it 2 straight wins and 4 in a row without a loss. A good start for City. They lead DC United 1-0. Yeah, so a very good start for New York City. And it started with Bakrar back to goal. I mean, here's Monsef Bakrar, and he's part of our script today because in the 9th minute, and to give credit to the City Boys show, the brothers who have asked the supporters in their podcast, and then they put it up on social media, to clap for 60 seconds. Monsef Bakrar, who wears the number 9, is the number 9, the striker, with no goals this year. And what happened last week, you just, the cameras were on him, and the frustration has mounted. But the encouragement from supporters, and then we pushed it along too as a part of our podcast and part of our network with the New York City Football Club. So I'm hopeful. And Nick Cushing in the pregame show, if you haven't heard it, you'll hear it. If the supporters do it, he's going to clap for the 60 seconds as well in that 9th minute. Yeah,
look, I think it's a nice sentiment. I said it last week when all of the players went over to Bakrar and patted him on the back and patted him on the shoulder after he'd missed an absolute sitter. I think it's slightly patronising as well. Nobody wants to have a minute's applause because you haven't been able to do your job. This is
you're taking a very cynical look that way.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the encouragement is, look, we see your hard work. We are all disappointed, maybe in some instances angry that you haven't been able to finish some of these golden opportunities, including that one, probably the biggest sitter that he's missed all year was moments later he was taken out of the game by Nick Cushing. But I want you to listen to Nick and what he thought about it and what he thinks about this 9th minute clap, and we'll come back to you. So I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but
but let's hear what he has to say. This is Nick Cushing. One thing about Bakrar, I don't know if you've heard this or read this. I think it's a great idea. The City Boys show, one of your New York City Football Club podcasts, has suggested that in the 9th minute that the supporters at Yankee Stadium give Monsef Bakrar a standing ovation. Everybody knows the suffering that this young man has had, and the Apple television cameras actually, they focused on him after he was subbed off and had missed that. You'd have to call it a sitter. So it seems like it's getting to him, but that's the kind of support I think an athlete could use, right?
I totally agree. I think one of the best parts of the Munsef gate, we'll call it, because everyone's talking about it, is when he scored the goal. When he missed the chance, the reaction from the team, from Bert Reese, from Mitja Ilnic, from Kevin O'Toole, from Thiago Martins, from Santi Rodriguez, the reaction from the team to show the support and the togetherness in that moment, I think it means more to me than anything this team has achieved, because it tells me that everything that I've been saying in the press and everything that I believe is the reality. This team is together. This team is supporting each other. This team is going to suffer together and it's going to achieve together. And when he scores, which I believe will be this week, I'm sure the team will celebrate together. And, I think it's team, fans, support staff, individuals. I think it's a great idea from the fans. I think our fans are super special anyway. So it doesn't surprise me that they are right behind Munsef. And, we'll celebrate together when he scores and we'll stay together when he doesn't. So if they do it, I'll clap with them for sure.
Yeah. So, and when we talked about it last week, I there's a certain level that I agree with your sentiment about, sometimes, you don't want to just, the word you used was patronize.
Yeah.
And because we saw the players come up in, Parks and Ilinic.
It's almost highlighting the problem even more.
Yeah.
We all know it's a problem. He hasn't scored. And look, it's wonderful from the fans. It's great. I do just think it's highlighting the fact that the person hasn't done his job. Let's hope he scored a goal before that 9th minute. That's what I want. Or in the 9th minute.
Or if he scores before or in the 9th
minute,
that'll be one of the great moments in club history if it were to occur.
I am not doubting for 1 second how hard he works and what he does bring to the team.
Sure.
But ultimately, the centre forward has to score goals. That's the thing. And at some point, you have to bring him out of the firing line, because what you said was right. When the cameras focused on him last week after he was brought on, he was absolutely distraught. Yeah. And I would wouldn't wish that on my worst of enemies, but I felt so sorry for him. He's still a young man. He's in a foreign country. He's only been here a relatively short amount of time. He's still getting used to everything about the football club and the league. So, don't worry. I feel really, really sorry for him. But I do think at some stage you just have to be brought out of the firing line. But also there isn't a great deal to put in there yet. There's just, an 18-year-old kid who's also unproven and who's also only just come back from Serbia after having the visa issues. And then I think he picked up a little bit of a knock in international duty. So there's not a great deal there in terms of replacement either right now.
That's Charlotte warming up on the right, Matty, as they're preparing to face the New York City Football Club. Well, let's get to the second goal and the guy who is finishing, and then a wonderful setup as Santi Rodriguez. Well, Matty will describe it as well as myself. This was the one that sealed the deal last week against DC United, Julian Fernandez.
Got it to Wolf. Wolf, hard dribble to the inside and then drew the defender, found Rodriguez. Rodriguez now, he finds a runner, and there's the second goal! And again, it's in stoppage time! And again, it's Julian Fernandez! How about that? For the second consecutive week, it's Fernandez sealing the deal for New York City FC! Santi Rodriguez got the assist on this one. A goal and an assist for Rodriguez on the night. And it's New York City 2, and DC United nothing.
Well, Santi Rodriguez has been magnificent in the last 2 games. Not only magnificent all over the field, but productivity-wise as well. It's a lovely little jinking run down the right-hand side. He finds some space, picks his head up and sees Julian Fernandez all alone at the back post. And again, pass appreciation. Perfectly weighted so that Fernandez can strike it first time. 2-0 game over, Glenn.
And it was game over, although Nick Cushing said for the second consecutive week also that he would like the second goal to come like maybe in the 60th minute or, somewhere in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we saw from Santi Rodriguez there is what we want to see all the time. He's like a ballerina down there on the touchline, pirouetting, twinkle toes. And then for me, the biggest point is the pass appreciation, picking his head up, being unselfish, laying in a teammate so he can just calmly run onto it and
you
just
can't play it any
finish
better than that,
Couldn't
right?
play it any better. Always
little
say
bend back towards the player.
Weight of pass appreciation. That's what it's all about. And
wonderful.
Rodriguez has been magnificent, as I say. Forget the covering every blade of grass cliche. It's his productivity. That's why he gets paid the money. That's why he's the DP. That's why they were so adamant, NYCFC, on giving him that deal. And it's a long deal as well. They want to keep him at the club for as long as possible. And then, look, if he produces like he has done in the last couple of games, if he does that over a stretch of 10 or 20 games, he won't be here anymore. Somebody will have come in, paid an awful lot of money for him, and he'll be off where he wants to be. I'm not saying he doesn't want to be at NYCFC, but you know that any young player here has visions of grandeur, whether it's playing in Brazil with a Corinthians or Flamengo, or going over to Italy or Spain, France, possibly, or England. That's just factual. That's what these young guys want to do, and that's why NYCFC have them.
And Nick Cushing pointed that out, and I made a point because you have often talked about designated player and the expectation. I brought that up with Nick, and that the full interview coming up at 7:15 on the New York City FC network, which is nycfc.com/radio, the NYCFC app, and the TuneIn app. And he said double-digit goals and assists are almost bare minimum for a player of his caliber. And then he said, once you get into the 12 and 12 and higher, now you're talking almost MVP.
I absolutely agree with him. DP, that amount of money, the talent, forget that, the talent he's got. He has to be looking to get 10 and 10 or 15 and 10. Even if it's 15 and 8, so be it.
And we've talked about Bakar. We've seen him miss the target on a couple of occasions with some real good chances.
Yes, exactly. Look, Santi Rodriguez, he's up there. He's up there to be watched and admired. But again, he has to do it over a long period of time. For Bakar, I always say it, sometimes a goal scorer just needs one to go in off their backside, or the goalkeeper to clear one into his back or the back of his head, and it just end up in the back of the net. He deserves that luck for his work rate. He really does. And look, say nobody, whatever I say about, I think the clapping's patronising or players patting him on the back saying, keep it up. Every now and again, I think there needs to be a little bit of tough love. But don't get me wrong, I admire the fact that he's still out there. He's got his head above the parapet. He's out there to be shot at every single, metaphorically, every single game. And he gives his all, doesn't he? There's no more you can ask than that at times.
Right. And now Santi went down twice last week. We're going to talk about this off-field treatment rule a little bit before we go on. So Santi went down twice and went off. And both times in commentary, we were starting to talk about this new off-field treatment rule, which says if you're on the field injured 15 seconds or more, trainers come out, you come off, and now you have to wait 2 minutes before you come back on. All right? So it happened twice. Santi Rodriguez jogged right back on. He was summoned right back onto the field, didn't wait 2 minutes. Now, a head injury is an exception to the rule. So if you're suffering a head injury, you don't necessarily have to wait the 2 minutes. So I asked for an explanation from someone at Pro Referees and someone who is in the know. His exact quote, when Santi went down at 39 minutes, it was a head injury, and the same at 75 minutes. Okay, this is one of the exemptions for not having to leave for 2 minutes. Then he went on to say, not in this case, but as an aside, we suspect that teams might have head injuries to avoid the 2 minutes. We are watching to see how the teams react. So the eyes are, and of course, this is what players are going to do. This is no shock. I honestly can't remember if I played this last week or not, but I talked to Nick about it. So we'll talk about it a little bit more after I get Nick's opinion here. This is Nick Cushing, head coach, New York City FC.
We all watch games and watch soccer domestically and globally, and we say, hey, why does that happen, or why doesn't that happen, or could it be changed or modified a little bit? And this is our opportunity. So in MLS Next Pro, we've been able to test some rules. And have gotten some really great results, not just the data and kind of the analytics, but also just talking to the players, the coaches, the athletic trainers, those that are kind of in the trenches to see how the rules have been working, and they've worked well.
One of them is interesting, the off-field treatment rule, and I wonder what you think of it, I suppose, until you sense it and experience it, but that's the one where if a player goes down injured and they're there for 15 seconds or more, athletic trainer comes out, this player comes off, has to sit for 2 minutes.
I'm a real believer in trying not to make the game clinical, and I think that, I said this to Pro, is that, my feeling is, probably in the moment they won't agree with me, but I like the fact that the game is random and the game is managed. And when it comes against you, it's painful, right? When they're slowing the game down or when there's an offside. I think
But you're saying it's part of the game. It's been part of the game for years, So
I think this is
maybe it's almost the romance of the game.
The part of the game we love, right? That 1 week it's yours and the next week it's somebody else's. And
yeah. So that was Ali Curtis, who's the senior vice president of MLS Next Pro, and he's in charge of some of the rule adjustments. So he's the one that spoke first to the Cooligans. So I didn't set that up very well. So that was Ali Curtis, who's all for it, said that there was an 80% reduction in time wasting over injuries to whatever extent that's, those analytics were evaluated, but you see, there's two sides of this. There's the side that, okay, yeah, it'll speed the game up a little bit, but then there's the other side, like, why not let the referee manage the game?
Yeah, all you're saying to me is that the referee's not competent enough to manage the game. So why is he even out there in the middle? If he can't work out whether somebody's feigning injury or not, can't manage the game, then he shouldn't be out there. Get better referees. Look, maybe I sound old school and a little bit old or whatever.
Maybe that's what's going on here. I feel the same way as you, though, by the way.
I'm a massive proponent and I'm massively in favour of VAR. That wasn't around in 1996 when I was playing, and I think that brings some quality to maybe not quality to the game, but makes decisions absolutely spot on the majority of the time. I think VAR has been a wonderful introduction to the game, but this I just don't understand it at all. I get it maybe in the last 10 or 15 minutes when teams are trying to time waste, but what about in the first 5 minutes and somebody gets hit on the knee, and sometimes you get hit in a place where you go a little bit numb and you think you might have done something serious. Nobody's time wasting the first 10 or 15 minutes. If I lay there for 15 seconds, why have I now got to go off for 2 minutes? It doesn't make any logical sense. I'm sure it's no wonder that the analytics support their theory that this is a good rule. I'd love to see.
Well,
those.
yeah, you're going for the supporting evidence and facts to always make your case. The referee tonight is Ishmael Pekmich. Now, if you don't know that name, you might not remember that in 2022, he was the guy in the middle at Cincinnati for New York City FC. That was that game where, I don't remember, Matty, New York City trailed, I'm sure you remember, trailed 3-0 and came back and tied it before the interval. Yeah. 3-3. Then New York City went up 4-3, and then Cincinnati came back. Brenner had a hat trick at that game. Well, Pat Noonan and his staff had some issues with the refereeing. There were VAR was involved, but they really had a problem. They didn't say that the referee Ishmael Pekmich said this, but somebody from the referee crew, that's all they would say, is that and Medunjanin was the captain of Cincinnati at the time, and they claim one of the officials said, "You guys gave it away, so don't come to us right away."
It's a fair point.
But it is a fair point, but referees, unfortunately, in some cases, are not allowed to say things like that, because I always, we see players miss shots, miss sitters, whatever.
I've had referees say things like that.
Have you?
If you go up to a referee and say, "Oh, you got that one wrong," and he'll say, "Well, you just skied the last shot."
Okay, I like that relationship.
I like that a lot.
That relationship.
I don't mind that at all. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think he had a particularly good game. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
The right decisions being come to, whether they're for or against NYCFC. You want the game refereed in the best manner possible.
All right, just one change for New York City. Julian Fernandez in for Hannes Wolf. And Charlotte will have 4 changes from their 3-0 loss at home to Minnesota. So they're coming in here with a little bit of an edge, you would think. Meanwhile, New York City, they've never beaten Charlotte in 5 tries, and they're trying to win their 3rd in a row. for the first time since the end of the 2022 season. So a lot going on here. I anticipate a good one, Matty. How about you?
Yeah, no, and it's a perfect environment as well, in terms of perfect weather as well. There's a little bit of drizzle in the air, the surface is slick, the infield area looks pretty good. It really does. I think it will be a good game. And, of course, Dean Smith has marked off the yardage as well.
Right.
So he's already got that in his head, which is always a positive for NYCFC.
Matty saw it from above. I had walked down to the field, and there was Dean Smith striding away. And then he was cut off by Nick Cushing. They spent a lot of time chatting. And a couple of guys from overseas who have a great deal of respect for each other. And they're going at it today. It's kickoff at 7:40. Our airtime for the pregame show on our live commentary in just 5 minutes, 7:15, which includes the interview with Nick Cushing presented by Ford. Okay, so for Matty Lawrence, I'm Glenn Crooks. Wonderful to have you with us, and enjoy the game, everybody.